All right, hey everyone. So a quick update and disclaimer about this video. It's super long. This is for people that are really nerdy about studio builds and kind of Patchbays in particular, and have a bunch of questions about how Patchbays work, what Patchbay they should get, why a Patchbay is important, and I'm just gonna go through this process step by step. So if you're not super patient, this isn't a video for you. If you are really looking for basically a let's play Patchbays video, that's what this kind of is. It's me going through the process of getting a new Patchbay, creating a document that really outlines how to route everything in a pretty complicated setup. I talk about how to build a studio routings map for your project, and you'll see how I did that. And then I go through the process of falling on my face a bunch of times, realizing that, oh my gosh, I don't have the right cables. Holy crap, the cable isn't long enough. What do I do with this? Like de-assembling and totally butchering a snake to make this particular project work. So I'm gonna stop right there and just let you know that this is a long video and it's a lot to chew. So buckle in, grab some candy, drink a soda, grab some Mountain Dew or whatever, and let's dive in. Yo dudes and dudettes and everybody in between or outside of that box. Buddy here with another episode of Modulated Drummer. It's another behind the scenes video. Today I'm shooting and filming and giving updates because we just got a bunch of stuff shipped. I put in an order at Guitar Center about a month and a half ago for some new Behringer Patchbays. And with everything that's going on right now, it just kind of automatically went to on back order, and I didn't know for about 3 weeks. And then I checked to just sort of see where things were at and when it was, try to check on tracking and stuff. And I noticed that the items it had been 3 weeks and it just hadn't shipped. So I was like, oh man, that's a bummer. It's probably happening to a bunch of you right now, especially if you're watching this right around the time that I'm posting the video, or if we're still in COVID times. But yeah, so that was a bummer. But I did just kind of check Sweetwater. This isn't a Sweetwater ad, but they had plenty of Patchbays in stock that I was able to order. They didn't have the Behringer one that I had previously wanted, but they did actually connect me with a person on the phone who was able to give me some feedback on what they thought was a good alternative and the one that they used at home. So that was pretty cool. And I ended up getting a Samson S-Patch Plus. I actually got 3 of these because there's a lot of gear here at Warm Robot Studios, and I want to try my best to just have it all plugged in all the time. So I don't have to, probably just saw if you watched the latest video about me installing doing the light test. Walking behind the desk and repatching things just sucks. So if you're not familiar with Patchbays, they essentially try to make it so you don't have to plug and unplug and reroute cables. You make a map of what you want plugged in, where you want that signal to go, and then you plug it in and it's basically permanently set up. Yeah, so I got 3 of these. I'm actually really stoked that the dude talked me into getting the Samson ones. I don't know if you can see that on camera, but the rad thing about this version, the S-Patch Plus, it's a 48-point balanced Patchbay. So I'm just gonna ramble on this for a minute because it's kind of complicated. When you buy a Patchbay, you have multiple options: normaled, half normaled, and through. Google that if you're not familiar. I wasn't super knowledgeable about which one to get, but I went the easy way out and I got the balanced Patchbay because, and this is gonna sound really obnoxious, but a balanced Patchbay works on unbalanced cables, but not the other way around. You can't really use unbalanced Patchbays for balanced signals, but you can use balanced Patchbays for unbalanced cables. So it's kind of future-proofing in a sense to just get one that's balanced. So I did that. But the reality with this Samson, the S-Patch one, you can choose any. So it has a switch on the front here. In the middle of the actual plugs, you'll see right here, there's a switch on every single channel. I think it's still trying to focus on my face, but you have a switch in between each patch point, and that allows you to switch it between normal, through, or half normal. So that's really neat. This is actually even better than the Behringer ones, because on the Behringer model, I heard that the switches are on the top. And if you have this in a rack, then it's like, okay, well, that sucks, right? If it's covered by something, you have to take it out of the rack just to switch the switch. Don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty that's what I heard. So yeah, this is just a little bit more expensive than the Behringer model, but it's awesome to have the switch on the front. So yeah, that's update number 1. I'm gonna get these plugged in and patched up as soon as possible. But another goodie that landed in the mail today was these Furman power supplies, or power conditioners. I got 2 of these because I kind of want one on each rack. And as it stands, well, we have 4. I have 4 little standing racks on top of the tables back there. And 2 of them have power conditioners that are pretty good. One of them has one that makes a really sketchy electronic sound when I turn it on and off. So I was like, dude, I have to replace that one. And I did some research on like which one to get, and it's just like impossible to choose because there's so much information out there, and you never know until you just kind of get something and try it. But I spent way too much time reading all the reviews and trying to make the best online decision possible. And I landed on 2 of these Furman PL Plus Classic Series power conditioners. I guess when you're trying to figure out which one of these you're gonna get, if that's something that you're doing right now, what are the considerations that you have to make? I guess the things to choose from is, do you care about what it looks like? Because you can probably find a decent amount of old power conditioners on like eBay or Craigslist or Facebook Marketplace or whatever, or Reverb. I just kind of wanted to make sure that I got something that was new, so I didn't have to worry about any of the gear in here. I absolutely wanted most of the plugs to be on the back, just because I really don't like having a ton of cables super visible on the front of any of the rack gear. Normally I really don't care about these, but the fact that it has these cool lamps, it actually looks really rad. If you turn the lights off and you've just got this like really warm glow in the background from those fun little lamps on the front, it just really vibed with the brand and the style that we're trying to create here at Warm Robot Studios. It looks really warm, right? Like it looks rad and kind of analog. So I was just like, dude, I want to use those, right? It creates a cool vibe. Besides that, it has a screen on the front that will show the status of the power supply and probably all the details, right? Like what the current level is, what the voltage level is, and stuff like that. And then I also really like that it had, obviously, the fact that it has a power switch on the front could be super useful. So yeah, that's the update with the gear that I got. I suppose I'll try to dive in and I'll try and set this stuff up. Time lapses are getting a little bit tiring to make. But yeah, maybe I'll want to see this kind of stuff. I'll just go ahead and do it until people start telling me, dude, who cares? We don't want to see you setting up your studio anymore. The funny thing about that is I think there's probably only like 3 or 4 people watching this right now. So there's nobody here to even tell me to stop doing this. So I'm gonna keep going because it's fun for me, even though it's a lot of work. I'm excited to get to the point where everything's just set up and I can just start making lots and lots of rad drum videos and experimenting with lots of amazing pedals, because there's so much cool stuff coming out right now that I can't wait to try to get my hands on and to show everybody out there what happens when you experiment with drums and synths. Okay, so yeah, here we go. Let's install this stuff. crashed. Final thoughts about this thing. There is a high likelihood that I did not get the correct number of patch bays, but that's part of this process. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm just gonna set these 3 patch bays up. Got a couple old ones, those might stay in the mix if I need them. But yeah, the other really important thing about this is creating a map. Dude, if you're thinking about like setting up patch bays and you have a decent amount of gear in your studio, it really helps to create some sort of like an Excel doc, basically. That's what I did. And I'll show that in a minute, just to kind of explain the thought process that went into this and how I figured out how many patch bays I need. Creating some sort of an Excel doc or a studio map really helped define what I have, where I want to put it, and how I want to be able to connect all that stuff together. So yeah, I'll show you that in just a second. Alright, again, below the power conditioner I'm putting the interface, and then I'm going to do the patch bays and basically try to fill this with all patch bay stuff. Interface, power conditioner obviously, and if I need space at the bottom I'll put in an additional 8 pre, which I don't know if I'm going to use yet, and then just kind of have this slim fatty fill in the bottom space as needed. I'd love to have that on a rack just because it's so cool, but the completionist in me wants this just to be dedicated to like interface stuff. I guess that's my OCD. Anyways, yeah, I'm gonna take these, I'm gonna move everything out basically, because I want the new patch bays on the right below the interface, and then I'll decide if I need these patch bays at all, as well as the other stuff in here. So here comes the time lapse. I'm gonna disconnect all this. The bummer is they're already patched in, so I'm gonna have to repatch those later. Dive into connecting everything, I want to show this Excel spreadsheet that I put together. This really helped me wrap my brain around what's going on with the routings here in the studio. The way that I kind of have it laid out is a column for instruments, the channel, this is for the mixer, channel 1 through 20, and how it's routed. So you'll see here that this is kind of the output of the mixer. And then these represent like the direct out is being sent to, and then this, which is Patchbay 1. That'll make more sense later. And then I've got the outputs of the Patchbay going into the interface. And you'll notice that I've got sort of a multi-Patchbay setup going on. The reason why I did that is because I really wanted to go through everything that we have here at Warm Robot Studios and figure out how I can have everything connected without just kind of permanently connected. So whenever we have a session here, I don't have to plug and unplug and reroute. I can just have everything going into a Patchbay and then route it from the front of the Patchbay instead of having to crawl around behind into the back of the racks or whatever and just deal with that pain. So that's kind of the layout of this Excel spreadsheet. If you're also kind of going through some routing pains, I'd really suggest creating a document like this. It took me about a week to put this whole thing together, but I'm feeling pretty confident about it. So yeah, let me dive into the details real quick. The things that I know for sure that I'm gonna have constantly plugged in is the drum stuff. That I just want it set and forgotten. Yeah, so you'll see that I've got bass drum routed into the back of the mixer through a snake, and then I've got direct out going into Patchbay 1, input 1 on the back of the Patchbay, so that'll be the top row, I believe. And then I've got input 1 again going into the input 1 of the interface. So the great thing about this interface is it's got 16 inputs, analog inputs on the back. So today we can basically try to connect channel 1 through, well, basically 1 through 16. So again, this is confusing, but the mixer has 12 direct outs, and then it's got 4 additional group outs. So what I'm doing is I'm running the stereo channels. It's got, after channel 12 on the mixer, it's got channel 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. And these are basically 4 stereo channels. The mixer does not have direct outs for the stereo channels, but I can route these stereo channels to the groups, and it has 4 group outputs on the back. So what I'm going to do is run group out 1 through 4 into inputs 13 through 16 on the back of the Patchbay. So I'll be able to have 12 mics or instruments plugged into channels 1 through 12, and then I have 4 additional stereo channels. So hopefully that sort of paints a picture in advance, and I'm not gonna do the aux sends right now because the interface that we got, the MOTU 16A, only has 16 inputs, so I can't deal with these at the moment. I can plug them into maybe additional preamp. I have a Behringer 8 pre, so I might tinker with that, but we'll see if I can squeeze that into this video or not. But yeah, I think we're just gonna try to focus on these main kind of 16 inputs and outputs and just try and get that going and see how it works. Focus. All right, y'all, so we're back. It's the next day. Was just working on all the patching in the back and trying to clean up cables till like 1 a.m. last night. Yeah, and today we are gonna try to focus on resolving the second Patchbay. So basically, I've got all the cables routed into the first Patchbay, which is the signals from the snake going into the mixer, the direct outs from the mixer going into Patchbay 1, and the outputs of Patchbay 1 going into the interface. So now I want to make sure that we get all of the instruments that we have here at Warm Robot Studios patched into the second Patchbay, so I can take patch cables on the front of Patchbay 2 and plug them into the interface on Patchbay 1 whenever we need. It's a lot easier, but I just need to, that's what I'm gonna focus on today. I need a bunch of extra cables, so I'm gonna like dig around and make sure that I have all the cables we need for all the instruments, and then I'm gonna make sure that they're routed into the correct channels based on that Excel chart I showed you a second ago. and just make sure they're patched into the correct channels on the Patchbays. After that, I think we'll dive into Patchbay 3 and just go from there. All right, so let's see where we're at. Okay, so sorry you can't see my head. I don't have a camera person to tilt the camera up so you can see my head, and I'm not trying to just like duck down like this for this entire shot. But a quick update, I want to let y'all know that yes, the first Patchbay here, it's totally routed. So channel 1, the top row, I've got connected to the direct outs of the mixer. So channel 1 direct outs are basically plugged into here. So if I want to patch anything that's plugged into 1, which is right now it's the bass drum, that's going to be permanent, I can plug in a patch cable here and connect it to any other point on these Patchbays. We'll get to that later, but like say on Patchbay 3, which we're going to use for our external outboard gear, pretend we have a gate plugged into connected to channel 1 of the third Patchbay. I can go a cable from here, plug it into the gate, have the output go back into channel 1 of the interface. And I can't recall exactly where that is. I think it's also channel 1. So we'll address that later once we get there. Again, the point of this video is to make sure that we've got Patchbay 2 all set up. And I do have all the cables plugged into the top row of it. So just looking back at that Excel doc that I created, the top row is a bunch of our additional outboard gear. So we've got the Slim Fatty, the machine, the Matrix Brute, Slim Fatty, the machine, the Matrix Brute here, etc., 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 all the way through all of our gear. So the cool thing about that now is all of the instruments are plugged into the Patchbay, and basically channels 1 through 17, and then the rest of them are empty. But again, I can take a patch cable, plug this patch in a cable, and connect it to any effect or whatever, or route it anywhere that I want in the studio, so that's good. And I just wanted to give everyone a quick update about the cables that I'm using. Since the Patchbay that we've got is a balanced Patchbay, I'm using a bunch of snakes like this. They're super short, they're like 3 feet long, and they're balanced cables. So if you look at the edge, I don't know if you can see it, but they're balanced cables. So I'm using a bunch of those. I bought like 6 of these. Again, I got them on Sweetwater. Sweetwater is like doing pretty well at having everything stocked and being able to ship stuff out on time. So yeah, we've dealt with Patchbay 1, we've dealt with Patchbay 2. We got the 2 new power conditioners installed, so that's great. These 2 rack stands are looking pretty spot on. I'm getting excited about them. And the next thing that I want to do is deal with Patchbay 3. So like I said, Patchbay 3 is going to be totally dedicated to our outboard gear, not our instruments, but our outboard gear. So the preamps that we have, which are all the way on that side, so I'm going to need some really long cables to make sure that all of those are patched in, and I don't think I have those. Okay, quick update. I actually decided to try to move forward and troubleshoot and do some tests on the outboard gear part of this whole process. So I was able to find an additional snake that was long enough to go from the Patchbay all the way over to the outboard gear. It's hard to see, but it's on that. It's all the way over there. It's not lit right now. But yeah, so I did a test taking with the Arturia Mini Brute 2S. So it's really hard to get all this stuff in shot. Yeah, basically this thing, the Mini Brute 2S, is plugged into the Patchbay, the top Patchbay on channel 8. So the back of the Mini Brute is plugged into the back of the first Patchbay, going into channel 8, And then this is for, actually sorry, this is the input of the interface. So whatever's plugged into here will go into the interface on channel 8. This one is dedicated to the instruments. And I've got the Mini Brute 2S plugged into the back of channel 8 on the second patch bay. And just as a test, right here on the third patch bay, I've plugged in the, I'll show you in a second, but it's a limiter. So on all the outboard gear, all the way over there again, just as a test, I plugged this is connected to the input of the limiter. So on the back of the patch bay, whatever gets plugged into here goes into the input of the limiter, and then the output of the limiter, all the way on the other rack, is plugged into the back of the bottom. So the bottom is the output of the limiter, and that allows me to route that back into the interface. So yeah, again, this is the output of the Mini Brute 2S, the sequencer. The output of the Mini Brute is going to the input of the limiter, and the output of the limiter is going back into the interface. And I did a test and it totally works. So this is going to be a bit challenging because I don't have all the right stands, but if I go ahead and hit, and it's really, there's a lot of stuff in here. If I hit play on the sequencer, you can see it starts to go crazy. And then if I walk over to the limiter, I've got a couple controls on it. This is the output. So the output of the limiter is definitely working. You can see that's the gain reduction, and that is the signal level. This is threshold. This is detector, which I'm not sure what that does yet, but I'll mess with it later. This is attack, which is pretty cool. This is release. And then it's got ratio. So super limited. It's got a link feature. I'm not sure what that does over here. And it also has an auto feature, which is just automatic. All right, so now the next step in this whole adventure is to see how many cables I actually have on me right now and plug in as many of the outboard gear devices into the patch bays, into the third patch bay. So I'll do my best to do that. I'll try and do a time lapse, but I think I'm gonna get stuck halfway through the list of outboard gear just due to a lack of cables. So I've got about 8 cables on hand right now, so I can get through the Art Pro. I need 1 cable for the input of the Art Pro, another cable for the output of the Art Pro, 2 cables for the digital art MPA, 1 for the input and 1 for the output, 1 cable for the WARM EQ, 2 cables for the VLA2, the Art Pro VLA2, and then I have 1 more cable. So I'm kind of stuck there because most of the stuff on that Excel sheet that I showed you has 2 channels on it. So to get the most out of that and to make sure everything is plugged in and being routed correctly, I just need way more cables. I need about 27 TS 1/4-inch cables that are long enough to go from that table rack all the way over to the patch bay, which is about 10 feet is really, it would be cutting it close. So I need like a 13-foot cable for the farthest rack, and maybe like I could probably get away with a 10-foot cable for the rack closest to the left of the computer. So I'm just gonna dive into that and get as much done, and we'll see where we're at. in a second. Camera switch, the other one ran out of batteries. Okay, so what I'm doing here is I'm running super long cables from that patch bay to the ARC preamps over here. The annoying thing about these is they don't have inputs on the back. That drives me nuts. And I don't have the ability to have all the cables on the back or on the front. I work really hard to try to find gear that has inputs on the back so I don't have a crap ton of cables coming all over the front of whatever gear I have, getting in the way of the controls. So that's a bummer, but whatever. I'm gonna plug input 1. I use a white cable on input 1. That'll go into the first channel of the patch bay for outboard gear. And then I'm gonna run the output of channel 1 which is on the back, into channel 2, so into the bottom row of the third patch bay, channel 1. So channel 1 top row is the input, channel 1 bottom row is the output, which is on the back. And then channel 2, I'm going to use channel 2 of the preamp. That's going to go into the top row of the patch bay on channel 2. And then the output of the preamp, channel 2, is going to go into the bottom row of the third patch bay, channel 2. So it gets pretty complicated pretty quick, and this is why I definitely had to create an Excel doc to really clearly outline and define all the routings. So yeah, here I am now in the back of the patch bay. I'm gonna plug all the cables into the correct patch points on the back here, just so they're permanently routed. Again, the white cable is going to go into the top row of channel 1. The blue cable is going to go into the bottom channel of patch bay point 1. The gray cable is channel 2, the insert, so the top row, and the black cable is the bottom of channel 2 for the outputs. Just to confirm that, white, blue for the output, gray for the input, and black for the output. So you'll notice that to get the patch bay set up for one preamp, I need 4 cables. So it's a ton of cables overall. It's going to be 4, 8, 12, 16 just for this rack. I don't have that many, but let's see how many I do have. Again, they need to be long enough to go from there to here. The good thing about the rest of this gear is it doesn't have any inputs on the front. So I can get cables that are just a little bit shorter and just plug them in on the back. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this snake, which should be long enough, and I was gonna cut the cables out, but I'm gonna see if I can make it work without cutting the shielding and separating every single cable. The reason I would want to cut it apart and separate each individual cable and not have it be enclosed is, 1, so I can make sure that the cables can easily reach the point on the back of the outboard gear. And secondly, I don't want to have any unused cables just sitting back there. But let's see what happens. I'm going to try the easy route first. So the input is going to be, I'm just going to use the snake and follow the color code to know which order all the cables go in. So I use the rainbow method, Roy G. Biv, so red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, blah, blah, blah. It gets tricky when you get to when you get to brown and gray, but I just go brown and then gray in that order. So gray is last, brown is right before indigo, or right after indigo. So red is gonna be, actually I see some inputs on the front. Damn it, I gotta do the same thing. So yes, for this interface, for this piece of gear, I need to separate this cable so they can reach the front of this unit. Yeah, and that's just gonna take a hot minute. It's totally frustrating, but once it's done, it'll be done. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut this snake, I'm gonna cut the shielding off, and I'm gonna separate every single cable because I don't have any other cables that are just separate, any other instrument cables that are long enough to reach from the outboard gear to the patch bay. So it's pretty simple. You just gotta cut this black shielding off and be careful not to cut any of the actual cables. And I'll just find, yeah, let's just kind of do it. Life of a drummer, trying to make videos for YouTube and only getting 5 or 10 views if he's lucky. This is probably just not the type of content anyone is interested in, and I'm just too dim to notice or understand. But this is just honestly the type of crap that you end up doing if you're trying to put together a recording studio. I mean, I guess the alternative or the other world that exists is people that just have the money and all the cables that they need from the get-go. But if you don't, you end up trying to just like butcher the crap that you have and try to make it work for the setup that you want to try to create. So I guess another thing to think about is the permanence of that outboard gear over there, right? Like a lot of it wasn't purchased with a crap load of intention. A lot of it was donated to the Library of Music Landria to use here in the recording studio at Warm Robot Studios. Yeah, it's just a way to sort of expand our catalog here and expand the amount of things that we provide the music community here in Sacramento with free access to. But I guess if I were to think about like what the 5-year vision of what Warm Robot Studios looks like, I'm not sure that those ARC preamps are like essential or crucial. Again, in hindsight, and with what I've learned over the past 4 or 5 years, I would really look for some sort of kit or gear or preamps or whatever, outboard compressors and stuff like that, that just had their I/O on the back. And what else is important? Having stereo, like 2 channels per thing, like that Warm audio EQ over there is awesome, but I didn't know when I bought it that I would have needed 2 of them. So, I mean, I guess I could always add a second one, but that was just like a bummer, a buyer's remorse thing. All right, so here we are. Like I said, it's got that stuff in the center, and what you need to do now is like run your fingers through all the cables to untangle them, because like I said, they're basically braided together. Yep, so one of my worries about doing this is the effect it'll have on like buzz in the studio, right? I know that like with these are balanced cables, but I know with unbalanced cables, the shielding really helps reduce like noise within the cable. So if y'all think that I'm doing this wrong or that I should use a different type of solution for this problem, let me know what you think I should try out in the comments. Or yeah, as always, if I'm doing anything like forgetting a fatal error, please let me know. Okay, so here we are back at the studio routings map. I just want to give a quick update with where we're at and some changes that I made to this since I showed it last. I'm leaving all of these channels blank for now, just until I can figure out how exactly I want to use those or what exactly I want plugged into those permanently. Again, the challenge is in this part, and how it really sucks that stereo channels 1 through 4 don't have direct outs for each of those channels. So that's just a bummer, but I'll put that aside for now. Yeah, what we did so far is we routed all the direct outs for the drum mics into Patchbay 1 for inputs 7 through 8. And then obviously all of those are getting directly patched from the Patchbay into the interface channels 1 through 7. To be honest, the back of the Patchbay 1, all of these channels 1 through 16, whatever's plugged into these on the Patchbay goes directly into the interface. So that's cool. This is just room for expansion if I ever get an additional 16 channel interface. Okay, so after we did that, I went to the instrument section and I took all the gear that we have here at Warm Robot Studios and plugged it into the second Patchbay. So we've got Matrix Brute left and right, Prophet left and right, going into 3 and 4. Whatever's red on here means that I don't have the correct cables for it and that I need to come back and fix that later. So I need to get a cable that goes from a headphone jack, an 1/8 inch cable, to a stereo split TS cable to go into 5 and 6. So I don't have that right now, so I gotta order that. The Slim Fatties in 7, Mini Brute 2S. This did say Drum Brute, but it's actually the Mini Brute 2S. That's going into input 8, which you saw I was able to patch from Patchbay in channel 8 into the third Patchbay, and I temporarily connected the input 1 on Patchbay 3 to be that limiter, and then the output of Patchbay 3, I was able to route that back into input 8 on the interface and record the Mini Brute 2S through the limiter and then back into our DAW. So that was rad. That was like the proof of concept, and I'm stoked that it actually worked. So yeah, we've got all the gear in an order that it makes sense. This is the stuff up here is what I'll use the most often, so I wanted it kind of first on the Patchbay. And then once I had all the instruments plugged in as best as I could, I went to the third Patchbay, and I was stuck. I got stuck due to a lack of cables, but I was able to get through the Art Pro, the digital MPA, the Warm EQ, and channel 1 of the Pro VLA2. So I'll put these in italics for now because that's where I need to continue. Actually, I'll just make all of these red, just so I know that I need to get cables for all of those. So in essence, I need, how many more cables is this? I need up to 21 more cables. The reality of that is I probably don't need all of these gates. I'll change that in the future, but for now I want to at least have all the cables that I need to plug in all the stuff that we have in the racks. So that'll be the next video. Right now I'm just gonna go, I'm gonna go to Sweetwater and I'm gonna order some cables. Probably another snake, just because I like having consistency in all the cables and being able to use the same color system for the order of all the inputs. It's just really easy for me to know what thing goes where when it's color coordinated, and I can use the Roy G. Biv order system.
All right, so a quick update to close out this video. We made a lot of progress. We got new power conditioners installed, which is super important. I don't have to worry about the gear that's connected to those anymore. We installed 3 new Patchbays, which is really great. Patchbay 1, we got totally routed and connected to our interface. And Patchbay 2, we plugged in all the gear that we have here at Warm Robot Studios into it. So anything that I want to route into the interface now, I can just do a patch cable on the front of the Patchbays instead of having to crawl around the back, plug stuff in, and just have a nightmare time. And then Patchbay 3, we got started connecting all of our outboard gear to Patchbay 3. We got stuck because we need more cables, but once I'm gonna order those ASAP, and I'll do a follow-up video once I get those in, just to kind of complete this Patchbay series. But yeah, wish me luck, and hopefully it won't take super long to order those, but yeah, COVID's just kind of wreaking havoc on all the music stores and manufacturers and stuff. So yeah, I'm gonna keep working on constantly making the studio better, and we'll keep you updated as that happens. All right, y'all, peace. Oh, crap, before I go, let me know if you have any comments or questions. I know this was a super long video. If you're watching this now, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. But yeah, if you have any specific comments to your studio build or your project, shoot me a comment, and I'm super happy to have direct communication with you, FaceTime or whatever, or just reply in the comments with any feedback or tips I have for what you're working on. So right on, y'all. Okay, this is officially the end. Bye.